I don't know what I did that disconnect.
I'm going to do PT.
So, yeah,
Rebecca's supposed
I
to.
have not heard from Jane.
And who is this? This is George. Oh, hello,
This is
George.
Maggie Brett.
Hello. I've heard about you.
Morning, George.
Oh, I know about her.
George,
Same for
are-
me.
are you just here eavesdropping or do you have something you want to get on, bring to our attention? You're welcome, and you're welcome to speak.
This is just. Rebecca shows up. She.
Mhm.
But anyway, this is just a
So,
visual. Wow. You can see her. She's quite.
yeah. Everybody got one? Waves. Waves.
Josh is so sweet. And we weren't waiting on you. We never had.
Yeah. I wish you could tell my wife that.
How many, do you have children?
Yeah, I have 3 daughters.
How old are they?
My older two are actually stepdaughters, but
Yeah.
they're mine more than anybody else's. The oldest will be 20 in February. The middle one will be 17, and my youngest just turned 10 on the 10th of November. So
Oh, that's sweet.
they're growing up, man. yeah.
What's the 10-year-old name?
Evie, Mary Evelyn, and we call her Evie.
Oh, that's
Nice.
sweet.
Yeah, that was my mother was Mary and my grandmother was Evelyn, and so we just combined the best of both worlds.
I have a very good friend in where I grew up in Texas. And, it's a good double Southern name.
I like it. I like it. It rings.
Tell me about the big tree that was coming down on Graybeard yesterday.
That's on the Smith's lot.
Were you up there?
So I noticed that. I came up Friday to make sure everything was good with the storm drains, and obviously we had a mishap up at the top of Graybeard with one of our culverts up there. And I didn't notice it then, and I was riding around yesterday, and I'm thinking of a different tree. I know what tree you're talking about. Just above it. Yes, just above your house at Tyler's. So Tyler had us take a look at that tree. There's one on the road that's getting ready to come down Friday. And while we were looking at that one, he asked Barry and I if we would just take a quick look at the one close to the house, which is a very large, very large.
On their property?
Yes. Very large old white oak, which had about a 3.5, 4 foot cavity starting in it at the bottom. And so, unfortunately it had some dieback at the top, just a little bit. But unfortunately in a situation like that, where that tree is so large and heavy, that even if a branch broke off of that tree, it would have completely been disastrous for the house. So we recommended to him that he probably have somebody else come look at it. And he had Andrew Wagner with, I'm not quite sure he's changed his name so many times for his company. But Andrew Wagner is a local arborist that graduated from Warren Wilson. And they came up and took half of it down yesterday, and they're supposed to be up there today taking the rest of it down, but I'm not sure about that. So,
I could see the whole thing from my bedroom window.
yes,
And so the first thing I noticed was the big cherry pick.
yes.
And that's weird.
Mhm.
Up the street, and then I saw a little orange dot.
Yeah, yep. He was way up there.
It was Maggie Entertainment all day.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was
Those things can be
amazing.
larger than you
Yes.
think.
Absolutely.
We had that
yes,
one that was behind my house.
Yep.
It would look like, I thought it was like halfway up the bad part.
Mhm.
It was more like a third of the
Yep.
way up. It was a 75, 80 foot tree.
And you know, it's unfortunate that an old tree like that has to come down. But if it were my property, I would have it taken in as well.
Yeah,
It was
that,
just,
that tree was, no matter which way it fell, it was gonna fall on something.
absolutely. It was
And possibly take out power for half the town.
definitely needed to come down.
Okay,
Right.
I've gabbed long enough that, we're running a little late.
No, that was all about trees.
That's right.
Okay, so that's, we'll mark you down for having made your report.
There you go.
Okay, so let's take a moment to collect our thoughts. Okay. So thank you all for being here on this beautiful sunny day. So I want to do a little explanation about what I have handed out. Just so stave off a little confusion. There's one thing that says October 24, 2022 agenda. I forgot to change the date on it, so it's really November 15th. But it is an agenda
For today.
for today, yes. And then there's another one that also says October 24th. That does not say agenda, and that's the minutes from the October 24th meeting. Both of which we'll be looking at shortly. Okay, so yeah, so item number 3 is agenda adoption. We don't have a very fat agenda today, though some of it will probably take a little bit of discussion. I do want to say that Phil has said that he needs to leave a little early if we're not done by the time 10:45 comes along.
10:30.
10:30? Oh, okay. So we'll try to be efficient with our conversations.
Good.
Okay.
I move the adoption of the agenda.
All those in favor? Moving on to the minutes. Maggie has prepared minutes for us. I have one typo. My parents did not consider naming me Barry. It's in the reports, Chairperson Barry Hester. We kind of blended names together.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, Brad Hester. Barry Kreisman
But
is,
that was autocorrect.
any other additions, corrections to the minutes from last month? I looked them through over and didn't notice anything, so. So, okay,
Second.
no objection, we'll consider them approved. Okay. Okay, public comment. Anybody from the public would like to make some comments to the tree board?
Morning, George. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, welcome. It's always nice to have people sitting there. Okay, which then brings us to reports. Most of my report has to do, my focus really during the month has been on the Tree City application. And I'm happy to say that I submitted it late last week.
That all my house, you just made my.
I got enough hours. Yeah, yeah, she gave them to. Yeah, and yeah, what there's four requirements that the Tree City has. One is that we have a board. We're here. And the second, that we have a tree ordinance. We have that. Third, that we have a budget. And what they want us to do is have a budget that is a per capita thing, and spending on trees at least $2 per capita for the town. Since we're 900 and something people, that means that we're expected to stretch ourselves and spend like $1,800, $1,900 total. As you do this online thing, it automatically calculates when you put the numbers in there. It automatically calculates what that figure is, and instead of $2 per capita, we're up at more than 22 per capita. So I would say that that's a fairly respectable commitment to working on trees. Most of that, of course, comes from the public works budget. We cut down trees and plant trees and kinds of things. So I think it's in pretty good shape. What you have to do, and I'm doing this so that when you have to do it, you'll know. After you're done filling in the blanks, there's several paragraphs that you're invited to write into, not just filling in blanks. When you're complete with it, you populate the signature page and get it to the mayor or the equivalent for signature. And once that's done, and then you copy that, and so that you can submit it electronically as well. And then it kind of does this review, have you fill in all the blanks, and so you pass the first thing, and then you send it off to the North Carolina Forestry Department, where they review it, look at it. And I'm still waiting for that to happen. Probably in a few days, I'll get word that I missed something or didn't do well enough on something or whatever. But I feel good about having gotten through the process as far as I have, and I don't think there's a lot that would do it. Well, there's,
I want to thank you
yes,
for taking care of that. Wow, what a massive job.
yeah. Well, as I've been saying, I'm doing all this blabbing here because I think it's important that we all be familiar with it. So that if it does follow, I will, I can. Yeah, once it's,
Yes, please send us a digital copy of that.
I'll do that. And that it's a good project, process to go through. It helps you think about things. Uh, I was not very eloquent in the comments I made about it. I put in a little bit of stuff about the history of the tree board and the town and some things I thought that a reader who doesn't know the town will provide a little context and help the Tree City know something about Montreat. So that was kind of my idea. So that was really most of my focus during this month, and can't say that there's really much more to have that I have to report.
Question. Am I turned on?
Yeah.
Uh, does this eventually go on a national website for someone in Oregon that wanted to see what we did or know about Montreat? Would they have access to it?
There's things that you sign at the bottom or check at the bottom that say, yes, I'm okay with things being published or things like that. And I didn't tell them not to do anything. So I think it is accessible. I think it should be accessible.
And I just hope that for all your work, some other people out there in the world would read it.
Well, I think from my understanding, any of these, for example, with the Mayor's Monarch Pledge or with National Wildlife, you have representatives from the town and from the committees. And you have passwords so that there's somehow a protection because you're a member of an organization. And I'm sure that if somewhere in Portland, Oregon, they would like to know if Montreat's a Tree City USA, you can go and see that they're members and they would, I don't know. I'm not sure if it's really out there for everybody to see, but
Yeah, I haven't
I
dealt
think
in.
it needs to be advertised to the people in Montreat and
Yeah,
how it protects us and how it gives us
I haven't dug. I
grant
haven't.
monies, et cetera.
I haven't dug into it to know exactly how it works. I think there is some accessibility. There is some protection. There are something approaching 4,000 cities and towns in the U.S. that are members of that. You can easily find a list of them. A number of them in North Carolina. And I will if once we pass this hurdle, we'll have 8 years of membership here in Montreat. There are some cities that have 40 or more years of membership. So we're not going to be
Your
the
next
top of
step
the.
too would be then to talk to Ann, but I know that you would present that to the town council and get on their agenda. And often there's a certificate that's presented and it's a formal picture taken for Brad. So be aware that
Yeah,
happens every
I'm
year.
aware of that.
Will this report be accessible to Montreat residents on the town website?
I have to look into that. I don't think there's any reason not to. I think it would be a good public service bit of information, open government and all of that. So
Good.
But yes, I'll look into all of those questions. Okay, so next on the list is town administrator. I don't know exactly what the status of administrator is. Last time we met, I was given to understand that they were about to hire someone, and then I got told that fell through somehow. So presumably they've gone back to the drawing board. So
And I hope I'm clear to speak on this, but as far as I know, we had a guy that was the administrator for Pawleys Island down in South Carolina. Unfortunately, he's backed out of the job after looking at prices of cost of living up here in Western North Carolina. I think they've backed out. And as far as I know, please don't hold me to this because I'm not real sure, but as far as I know, we have been for about 6 more weeks. And I think the idea was to try to back up and punt and see what could further come of hunting another administrator.
His hours has apparently been restricted.
They have, and I think due to his retirement, he can only work so much. And I don't know any of the stipulations of what his hours are. I just know that we've got him for a little longer, and sure wish we could keep him around. I think Ben's a great guy, but anyway, I think we've got him for a short period of time. So I just know he's obviously not here this morning.
Brings us to Public Works.
I have nothing major to report. I know Barry and I had been talking about when the college lets out for Christmas break. We're good Lord willing and the creeks don't rise. We're going to try to finish the assembly drive portion of the tree inventory and get the rest of those trees taken down. I think again, there's close to 40 or so that we still have to take down in between 30 and 40.
That count over there by the Flat Creek Crossing?
You know, as far as I know, it's from Louisiana. We stopped at Louisiana the last time we shut Assembly Drive down, and then we'll move forward from Louisiana to
Going uphill.
Graybeard past the lake on that portion. So and then I know we've got some other areas that have been inventoried, as well as several trees that have been marked in between, in the last 6 months that have been ID'd and marked for takedown. So we've got several on the list that are marked or ready to go. So we're hoping to get on that.
Okay, I'm making a note to myself to contact Andy Plininger, who's the forestry person. And because my understanding was that we couldn't really move further with inventory until we catch up with some of the backlog.
Yes.
But I want to check that perception out with him. We're getting a little antsy to be able to move on. The main thing would be because the wisdom of the forestry people is that we should use a professional organization to do the inventory and all. And so, but we need money for that. And we can't get money if we haven't done what we said we were going to do in the first place. So.
Yeah, Barry and I saw him back when we went to Greensboro this last trip, and we had another conversation with him, and he definitely again strongly advised that we use a professional company to do that, which again, I have no idea what that kind of stuff costs. So we'll have to see how it goes.
Could volunteers be watching and not participating?
I would assume so. That I do not know the answer to that question. I would think that's not a big deal to have some of your residents kind of seeing, what they're looking for and what exactly what they're doing to those trees to figure out what, condition they would label them as on the inventory.
Did you say you have a number of trees the number that are from Louisiana up? How many you have to do? Is there an estimate of number?
I know there is a number there. I don't know what that number is. I know that when we started up from the gate to Louisiana, Barry made the comment to me that we had about the same amount of trees from the gate to Louisiana, and I think we took down 37. And he seemed to think that we have close to that going up through Louisiana up toward John Knox.
Wow.
So we've got, when you look at the inventory, there's quite a few on there. So
And the town has the capability and the equipment to take down these 40 you're talking about ourselves?
What we did last time was we hired Kyle Patton to come in on a certain budget number. You know, we said this is what we have to spend. This was on last year's budget. This is what we have to spend. And what we did was it was him solely that came with all of his equipment and his trucks. And we took our team and him and we split into two teams. And we kind of frog leaped each other up Assembly Drive. And with the equipment that he has, being a tree service, he's got, some little bit smaller equipment that's easier to use than our big backhoe. So we were able to do, two teams, one team of 3 and one team of 2. And Kyle and I worked together, and then Barry, Jared, and Drew worked together. And we just leapfrogged. And with the help of Kyle, we were able to get 37 on the ground within 4 days.
That's impressive to me.
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It was a
Just
good time.
Just a little
Y'all
side
do
note.
such a good job.
Thank you.
So good.
There were 2 guys walking down Graybeard, and one of them had a big hammer in his hand, and they were looking at the posts. They were from Duke.
Mm.
They were looking at all their telephone posts, and I said, I know what that hammer's for. That's your MRI
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep.
for telephone pole.
Yep.
But anyway, that was interesting that they were on site there.
Hmm.
I would, of course, being curious, I had to say, what are you doing here?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Good to be in the know.
That's it.
And it's Duke that cuts the limbs along the wires.
Yes, it is.
And how often are they here?
I'm not quite sure. I know they did the 3-phase in town, 2 years ago?
Mhm.
And that I know they've done some of the smaller stuff, even back some over the course of this year. They did some of the smaller services, and not necessarily the service to your house, but the smaller power lines going through town. But yeah, we got to watch them when they do that, because they'll just chuck that stuff right off in the drainage ditches, and we have to get, you got to be careful. We had to stay on them to get them to pull it out. And yeah.
That's an impressive experience.
But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
This may be a random question, but can you identify when you're walking along or in the street, the public road? It's how many feet over is,
That's one thing I have learned in this town is there is half the time there's no rhyme or reason to a right of way. And truthfully, if we have a tree that somebody has located, we always have to, even Barry, we always carry a survey map with us
Yeah.
to find where the lines are, or pull up our phones, and you can get on GIS and look at survey lines.
because I'm noticing more bows around trees that I think are not on private property.
I understand. Yeah, it is amazing to me that like on West Virginia, we were looking at somebody wants to put in a parking area and a wall, and that the right of way is like 30 feet off the road. So
Yeah.
it's no rhyme or reason. You always have to
Yeah.
have a good survey map with you.
Mm. So I have a question. My concern here is it's partly related to Firewise,
Mm.
and it's about leaves.
Mhm.
And people have been bagging up leaves and getting them carried away and such like that.
Mhm.
Of late, people in my area, and it's primarily one person, but they've just been blowing the leaves off into the right of way and sometimes into my yard.
Yeah.
And I was told that they were told that they couldn't do the bags anymore. So I'd like to know what the truth is.
No, that's not the case. The only way we will pick up leaves is if they're in bags. Used to be, we had the spot to dump up on top of the hill where the old horse barn was, the riding stables. Unfortunately, we don't have that anymore. That was shut down. That was MRA property. There was an agreement there that we could use that property to do that. That's no longer available. So unfortunately, we have to pick them up, throw them in a dumpster, and then haul them to the landfill. Unfortunately, that's the only way we can pick up the town's leaves and get rid of.
So that's over on North Fork.
No, that is to the Buncombe County landfill.
Oh, the landfill.
Yeah.
I know that the last year you were
Makes sense.
trying to use one closer.
We got shut down on that one
Oh,
too.
did you?
There was a place over off of number 9. You go down toward Lake Lure.
Yeah.
And there was a place there that had also had an inspector come in and they found hot spots in his landfill where we were dumping leaves, as well as many other landscape companies were using that landfill and dump site. And again, unfortunately, we just don't have another option at this point. There is nowhere. We have exhausted. I have searched. I worked for a landscape company before I came here at BB Barnes. We had a place out in Asheville that was solely what he did. He used leaf debris and turned it into topsoil. He was shut down about 3 years ago. So there's really hardly anywhere that will take the amount of leaves that we produce as a town. We fill up. Drew picked up last week almost 500 bags, which is a much higher day than normal, but not on the highest ends
Yeah.
of days. We picked up upwards of 800 bags in a day, which is a ton of leaves. And you fill up a 30-yard dumpster really quick with 800 bags of leaves.
Well, when you go to the Asheville landfill, you're not having to remove. You can take.
No, we put them in a 30-yard dumpster. The CWS company that does all of our sanitation stuff,
Oh,
they come and pick that dumpster up, deliver a new empty one, and haul that one to the landfill. So
you're not taking the leaves out of the bags as you were
no,
doing a year
ma'am.
ago.
No, man. That was what
That
we were
was-
having to do for a long time. Which
That
was
crazy.
Then we had
yeah,
to have an
you
ordinance.
want to talk
that you
about it?
can't Put rocks. Remember
Yeah.
we talked about.
Yes,
that? Put
exactly.
rocks
No,
in those
it's
bags.
supposed to be no plastic bags and no large yard debris. It is strictly supposed to be leaves.
So, is there a publicly available leaf policy that people could refer to?
I'm not 100% on that, but I do believe it should be on our town website as far as under your ordinances go.
Mhm.
I would think there's a sanitation portion of that that states, and with the new stuff that's happened lately as well about trash, there's supposed to be some new ordinances on trash being in bear cans, and if they're not in bear cans, then you're liable for the bear getting into your trash. But leaves are supposed to be in the disposable bags, no plastic, which at this point it's kind of a one of those things where, if you have plastic bags out, we would probably get them because they're going in a dumpster.
Are you expected to put them in bags? Because what I did was to have the guy blow it all up into one big pile, and I'm gradually turning it into mulch.
If that's on your property, I don't think anybody can say anything to you about it.
I know Alice Lance was, when she was commissioner, wanted that to be done. If your property had an area that was
Yes.
a number of feet away from your house, you're
Yeah.
trying to get the
Absolutely.
leaves away for firewise, for fire.
I like the Firewise thing in a way, but as far as the landscaper and the the earthy kind of landscaper guy in me, leaves have been falling on the ground forever.
Yeah.
And if you remove that ecosystem from your yard completely, like you're saying, you're trying to
Mhm.
create compost but I do have a little bit of a problem with removing all the leaves off of your property, but either way, that's a whole
Yeah.
nother story. But
I'd rather leave them on and turn
we,
them to mulch
I
myself.
think
So.
there
Yeah,
could be an
exactly.
education program of
Yeah.
that of sorts.
One thing I
Firewise.
have learned recently is that the deer really like the piles of leaves
Oh, I'm
for
sure.
on a cold morning.
Yeah.
I looked out the other morning, there were 6 deer in my pile of leaves.
Probably little bear cubs like to play.
and as far as your neighbor blowing them in the right of way,
That's bad.
please contact the town so we can have a conversation because it makes our job extremely hard. There is a very small number of guys that work in this town, as y'all know. And I don't know that a lot of people know that. I don't know if there's a whole lot of people here that understand there's only 5 of us. And it's
Mhm.
usually me and Mike that have to walk every mile of roadway in this place with a backpack blower on your back to
Yeah.
blow the leaves out of the road. And when you've got people rowing them into the road, it makes our life really.
Not so much into the road, but sometimes across the road and
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
into what it really is right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's more the contractor guy that's doing it than
Yeah.
it is.
Oh, I understand.
But
And,
anyway,
yeah, it's,
so thank,
it's,
yeah,
it's
Thank
one of
you.
those things.
so I'll be looking in that, and I think we may benefit from doing something that will be more of a public notice, at least periodically, and I'll think about that.
And I would highly recommend if you have the ability to hire somebody to blow your leaf, if you're trying to get rid of them all, blow them to the road. And if it were me, I would call the town and ask if it's okay to blow them to the edge of the road. And because you're going to have somebody come vacuum them up. And I do know there's some guys in town that have spots they can dump because they're not producing an amazing amount of leaves, but down here across the way from Bud Halls, I know not speaking politically here, but Mike Sobel has a plot of land that he always does free greens for the community.
Yeah.
But that's where they dump their leaves.
Yeah.
And so you have a free leaf dump
And
there.
Black Mountain has a vacuum.
Yeah,
system.
well, yes, Black Mountain does, but I know some private landscapers that also have, there's several. I mean, you could probably find most landscape
You
companies.
have one, don't you, Brad? Don't you have a,
Not at that, on that level. What I've got is a little Toro. It's a blower that reverses to a vacuum.
Yeah.
And a mulcher. It works pretty well for,
how much are the vacuum for? the
To
town
have somebody
ever-
come and vac them up,
Well, or for the town to buy one.
you're looking at several $1,000s, and then you have to set a truck up.
Oh.
You know, it's one of those things where it was, when I worked at BB Barnes, we did that, and it was that time of year was a nightmare. Not only did you have to set up to do that, but you had to take an entire truck apart and set new stuff on. But anyway,
Good.
brown paper bags, we'll pick them up.
okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Moving on, number 7 is old business, and what I have put in there is pre-city application, which I addressed in my comments a few minutes ago. I don't know that I need to say anything more. The application is in. We're waiting for the response from the North Carolina forestry people on whether it's acceptable or not. I'll let you know next month.
Wait,
So,
next. Am I next?
yes.
I have Rebecca here. You may have something. Oh, sorry. Rebecca is here and she's helped me put together some visuals. I'm not sure what the status is, but well, in just an introduction, I have tried for years to figure out the way that things are laid in Montreat. And I've had one try after another of how all these entities are connected. And so being a school teacher, I made this little board that has all of the entities with the tree board in the middle. And you can see I've connected them with strings, and you can see that this is a very complicated kind of arrangement. And so, can you put that up? What's his name? Josh?
Josh will come back.
Anyway, we've prettied this up, and the idea is that we will, between now and the first of the year, we will have informal conversations with people in each of these groups to ask them, what are they doing about trees? And do they need to know what other people are doing about trees? And what would they think would be something for the future that we could do? And this is a very informal, non-urgent, just talk to each other and expand our communications between all these groups. So the pink things are the people that are involved. And I have for the college, Dottie and Josh, and for the town, Jane and Mason, and for the land care, Grace, and for the historical foundation, Ann and Ron, and for the cottagers, Beth Fountain, who's working with their open space, and for the wilderness committee of the MRA, Dan Neal, and for the trails and rangers, Jason. So those are the main, people.
She's
Oh.
gonna bring it up.
I think she's.
She's bringing it up.
That's good.
So I had fun with my thread, got my embroidery thread out and my pens and made this. I'm a school
Well, I
teacher.
know at one time, Maggie, we had had a conversation at Landcare as to the cooperation of the grounds crews from the entities, from the
Yes.
college to the MR Conference Center and the town. And I know that there has been an establishment of some good relations with the town, and Daniel, you might
Of course, that.
speak to that, but there is my understanding as well from Dottie and from talking to the conference center is people come in and they're hired and they mow their lawn, do or whatever they do, and then they leave, that they don't have the extensive number of, is that correct? Number of people to work on the grounds for the conference center property.
So,
I would love that clarification. Maggie.
so just to make sure I'm thinking correctly, we are talking for the college. It would be like US Lawns
You are.
that comes in and does all of their ground maintenance.
Mhm.
As far as the town goes, obviously, you know, that's us. And then the MRA, obviously it's their crew that does everything, ground wise, maintenance wise for themselves. But the college has a company called US Lawns.
Mhm.
And they, in my opinion, they do a good job of coming in and cleaning up, and taking care. And then, you know, they're here about once a week.
And they plant beautifully.
They do keep a nice little annual
Pansies.
display going by the signs up there, but they take care of all the leaves. As far as I know, they're blowing them in areas that the college owns that are out of the way, and just let them lay and disintegrate.
So your relationship then with the conference center grounds do they also have a company that comes into?
No, that's all. That's all.
them.
That's
And
all
I know
John.
You cooperate together with.
Yes,
Roland Lee,
absolutely.
yeah.
Any way that John Quincy and Barry Creasman can collaborate and we can help each other, we always try to do so. They do a fantastic job of keeping everything they have up there clean and neat.
And it was David Neal, Maggie, that 2 meetings ago, and he might be streaming and listening right now. He was curious about how the cooperation, because this is an unusual place.
It is.
Where you've got properties that are so not really owned by the town, but by private institutions.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up here my whole life, and until I started working here, I never really understood how many, how separated, but together everything really was. So,
And
yeah,
do you really understand it now?
I'm working on that. I think maybe by the time I retire, I might understand it,
Well,
but
don't retire anytime soon.
Please don't. That's right.
It's Josh.
You should find Josh and get him to do it.
Anyway.
You want me to go look for him and ask him to return?
So the basic idea from my presentation is that we will assign people, if they are willing, to talk to folks between now and January about this issue of how things are related, and just a very simple questionnaire I wrote up for people if they wanted to use it to ask folks questions about and so on. And then in January, we'll pull all this together again and decide what our next moves will be.
Okay, and Gracie has gone where?
she was finding Josh.
Oh, okay,
Okay,
all right.
so
So
Rebecca has done amazing.
Maggie is trying to do her presentation and we need to make sure she gets some attention.
And
Well, Josh and this young lady back here are trying to get it pulled up on the screen at this point. I'm gonna step in.
she's great. Yeah. Oops. She's- We've had great fun. Yesterday. I want you to see her artwork. I hope there. Hope y'all can see what she has created. There, look at this.
So Maggie,
Yes.
what is it that you need the board to address today?
I don't think a single thing except maybe to say that we will assign folks to talk between now and January. And
And who is we?
right now, me, I guess. Okay.
Well, I think it should be the tree board that makes
Yes,
these
and
decisions.
ask for
And I
volunteers.
think there are some things that we need to discuss about the plan then.
Let's discuss the plan.
Okay.
Can you read it?
Look at this. So she has
Well done.
nice title, identifying the tree board's role in the community. And we have the MRA, and we have the cottagers, and we have trees, and we have Heritage Center, Land Care Committee in the town. And we put down various things that each of these entities do. And we've begun to put arrows across, similar to this red thing, and beginning to get a concept of what we might do as a tree board to facilitate communication between all of these groups. So the next piece is between now and January to just have these informal conversations with people we know who are interested in trees. And Brad suggests maybe we make some assignments of people.
I
Or
agree.
approve the concept, is that what you're getting at, Brad? Is to prove the concept of doing this?
And some of the detail about how we proceed. I agree that we do need to talk to the different entities. So I really recommend, if you haven't done it already, I recommend that you go to the town website and find the tree ordinance. It goes into a great deal of I think about what people can do and can't do with monitoring things, and what are the limits there of this board. Just real briefly, we are responsible for public trees. Public trees are trees that are on public property, which is anything that is within the town right of ways. So, bordering all the roads, there are several areas that are larger areas that are town things. Just as an example, I often use my place as an example, but just because it's such a blend of things. What looks like my backyard is actually mostly town right of way. The Quillen, is that the right name of it? Yeah, Quillen, the street that Ann Vincent lives on. The way you drive it right now, you come up to almost to the creek and you do a left-hand turn and on up and it joins the Mississippi Road before you get to the creek. But if you look at the town maps, that right of way crosses the creek and then curves and goes up to Mississippi, a couple of 100 feet beyond my house. And the space that looks like my backyard is in fact mostly town right of way. There's sewage and there's water pipes, that's one of the issues. But the other thing is, where it gets a little more complicated, is the major power lines also go along there. So Duke Energy has right of way in there as well. So it gets really complicated when you're trying to do anything with a tree in my yard. I treat a lot of it as my own property and just take care of it.
Sure.
But I'm careful not to cross certain boundaries.
Maybe the something that I could do is look over the ordinance tree ordinance.
It,
and
it's,
see how that
well, that's
fits
what I'm
into-
trying to say is it's important to know that. And
Yes, yes.
there are some large, bits of property that are town right of way, and as far as I know, are not private property. Not private, like, there's a space that runs from Virginia on over to, I don't know exactly where it stops, maybe North Carolina. It's somewhere behind the post office. It's an area that's 60 or 100 feet wide and a big rectangular there that there are no houses built on and there's no roads. But it's town on Robert, and there's a couple of places like that that are big places where there are trees. Not quite enough space to build another road, you know, or other places, but it's still kind of sizable. So
I'll
I
volunteer.
think as a board, we kind of need to know about those places and what the issues around them are. But for the, you know, for the purposes of this idea, you know, there's property, lots of property, a lot of property that is the conference center. Or, I don't know, they changed the name to the conference center, or are they
It's still MMR.
still
But it's a
MRA?
conference center.
Because of their website that's changed something. Anyway, a lot of property is owned by them. There's also the college, and there's a lot of college property. So it's really the three main things plus power company that have have influence on what happens with the trees in town. And so those are the main places that we need to be talking with, you know, the other members of the land care committee. There's church, what are the other land care committee? There's
Well,
Presbyterian-
I would just like to make one statement before we. You're now bringing up as something that the tree board should have a knowledge of and should have maps of and should be educating the public. If you're knowing where your properties are, but we not only need to know along the roads, those trees and inventories, but we need to know the town property, because what you're saying now is that there are more areas of the town that we should be knowledgeable about and be recognizing. And that has to be something that we need a map, as tree board needs to have a map of those open spaces or the public right of ways that are owned by the town. So, and I think that's what the cottagers open space in Wilderness wants to know about. That's what Mary Nell Todd, who is on the town open space, they want to know, because they're wanting to take care of, quote, what people would say as pocket parks that could be in areas around Oklahoma. There's been talk up there that there's spaces that the town owns. So we need to know and have a map of the town's properties that are clear. Is that what you're asking about? Because that's what we need to take responsibility for, right?
Yeah, I'm saying as a board, we are responsible for the public trees. And
Those properties like.
anything that is on Montreat property, right of way.
Yeah.
Whether there's a road there or not, this board is responsible for those trees, and we have the right to point at a tree and tell Daniel to take it down, you know. You know,
But we have to know where the spaces are.
you know, we need to make sure we're pointing at the right tree and that we've got a good reason for it. But that's just to kind of overstate what the board is. And it's you know, there's language in there that makes that people could be penalized if they interfere with the work of the board.
But I do think too, Brad, and speaking to Maggie's work on this, we are a tree city. So the college is a part of the town. The conference center is part of the town. So we need to be advocates of all trees in this valley or in this area. And that's where I think Maggie's
That's-
going with her concept, right?
Yeah,
And I'd
I-
like to suggest that since we have 5 minutes before Bill has to leave, that we ask Rebecca to send copies of these charts that she's made and a couple of other things that kind of look toward the future. And we can digest this and maybe start back with it in January.
So, yeah, so my response to the basic idea is, one, it's gonna take a while to do what we need to do.
Absolutely.
And so, and I don't know that the time frames are necessarily all that workable in places.
Right.
I certainly agree that, we need to be talking to the different entities that are involved,
So I
you
think
know,
that's where we are.
I'm not sure of the role of the cottagers association, except that, you know, certainly everybody who owns property in Montreat has some trees.
We have made a series of questions, just like what you're asking, that we can send on with her graphics, and everybody can chew on this and digest this and reconvene in January. Let all this sort of settle out and look at what Rebecca and I brainstormed about yesterday, a long time, and just see where our thinking is about what this group can do in
Mhm.
all of these areas.
Did Daniel want to say something?
No, I just wanted to say that I think you've done some great work here with
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
Rebecca.
Rebecca, you've done great work here. And, you know, it is confusing for folks, especially for folks who haven't moved here or who have just moved here or looking to see what, you know, how everything kind of fits
Things
together. And, you know, as far as the town tree board goes and how people think of the trees in town, we are kind of the liaison of what needs to be done, and we should be kind of a focal point. And I do think Brad has a point with what we can and can't do as far as telling people how they can and can't do it. But, you know, we as a focal point of when somebody says, well, what can I do about this tree? They're probably going to come looking to the tree board.
Yeah.
And so I
So,
think that
yeah,
was,
so I think it's important that we understand our
yes,
our responsibilities and also the limits of of what we can do.
Yeah.
And work within that.
We
So,
talked a lot about that, Rebecca and I, yesterday, and
Mhm.
we made some list of things just along that line, and it would be good if we can send that out to everybody and you
I
can
would
look at it
appreciate that, yeah.
and see if there's things we need to add. I just thought about maybe we need to have a meeting about open space. Yeah. Period. In the community. And that's just one idea for January, February.
Mhm.
So,
Ye-
okay.
Yeah,
Done.
so agreed. And so I think if we all took it as our assignment to read those materials, to go to the town website and find and read the tree ordinance. One of the things we're expected, you know, the things that we're expected to have from Tree City USA and have a tree board, have a tree ordinance and have a budget. Those are three of the four things that we need to do. And I think we all need to be familiar with that. And just take it step at a time. I very much agree that we need to be talking to these other entities and figure out how we can figure out how we can work with them. And particularly on when there's disease in there, it's not gonna, you know, the emerald ash borer doesn't know about property lines.
Yeah.
that's exactly right.
And neither does a tree.
Yeah.
I have a friend who has a pecan tree and their neighbor's pecan tree next door in Texas. And all the major pecan droppings are in her backyard. It's not even her tree, and she's allowed to go and get bushels of pecan shell.
Oh, no.
And
Details.
I moved to the adjourned, if that's okay, Brenda. Is there other
No.
announcements, or did you have another?
Let's consult the agenda.
And I will
I
get
think
the
we'll-
minutes out very quickly and forward you some of these things.
Okay,
from
that is the other thing, and I really want to make it a matter of discipline to look at the things we said we were done each time. I've put it in the agenda item
Yes.
9 action items and responsibilities. That is what we're gonna do and who's gonna do it. And
Can I summarize that in the minutes? Which what I can watch the video and remind ourselves of what we said we would do in the interest of.
I like,
Want to do
Yeah,
it now,
le-
we can.
I want to make the time to get it said in the room if we can, but this today is really simple, I think, unless you tell me that. Well, you could say that there's one thing is, as I was saying, look up the tree board, the tree ordinance, read it. We're going to be getting materials emailed to us about this project, and should read those too. And okay, thank you, Phil. So, I just want us to be in the habit of at the end of each meeting saying, here's what we
Yes.
said we'd do, because I think there are times when we
That's
talk
right.
about it, then we forget what we said and it kind of goes by the way. Okay. So,
Next meeting.
next meeting, yeah, we do need to talk about next meeting. I knew there was something else. So we're meeting early today because next week it's Thanksgiving. And so we adjusted there. Christmas this year is on Sunday, the 25th. We normally have met the fourth Tuesday of the month, which would be the 27th. So there have been some years where we have not met in December.
All 8 years. There have, as, as in land care, we don't meet in July. And tree board doesn't meet in December, so there are 11 meetings, but I'm not gonna be able to make it the 27th.
So
Let's meet again in January and not meet in December. I don't know what we need to do. about
I think if we're each doing what we're talking about doing here, I think that could work. I think I have some follow-up to do along that line myself, but I'll just take responsibility to do and report back to you guys in January. So I'm okay myself with not meeting in December and coming back together on the fourth Tuesday in January.
I think you have the privilege too, Chair, to go ahead and write up information and just email the board. Just tell us what's happened. I was coming to this meeting to give you more hours and I didn't know you'd already sent in the hours. So that was what my duty to come in my follow-up. So anyway, if you
Right.
get something done, you can just tell us and we'll clap.
So I want to be a little bit more organized than I was this last year about how we gather information, and we don't have to scramble around about that, but we can deal with that at another time.
Yes. I move that we not meet in December and that we carry on with our assignments between now and the January meeting.
What date is that?
It's it would be the fourth Tuesday. Let's see. Looking for it here.
23rd.
24th.
It's January 23rd is the last of that's
The 24th.
And 6th.
No, it's
January
it's 24th.
So far I have 23rd, 24th and 26th.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday is
Tuesday.
the 24th.
All right, January 24th, Town Hall, 9:30. Okay,
Okay.
doke, I'll put that in the minutes. And we will, do we need to announce somehow through, the town that we're not meeting?
I'll talk to Angie about it.
Okay. perfect. Move we adjourn. Yeah.
I think, yeah, vote with your feet.
Right.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Yes, excellent.